Interesting facts. He read a poem at the inauguration of John F. Kennedy on January 20th, 1961. He wrote a new poem for the inauguration but was unable to read it well and stumbled due to his old age, so instead he recited the gift outright from memory. He was married at Harvard University to a woman named Eleanor. 4 out of their 6 children died before him.
Interesting facts! Elliot died of cholera in 1904, Carol died of a suicide in 1940, and Marjorie died in 1934 of fever, and another died a few days after she was born. His sister, Jeannie, had mental problems and lived in a mental facility. He won the Pulitzer Prize 4 times, which is more than any other poet in history, and his tombstone reads, "I had a lover's quarrel with the world."
Interesting facts! In 1962, when the Berlin Wall was built, he made a trip to Russia and gave readings. The following January, the day before he died, part of the Berlin Wall collapsed. This event follows the poem, Mending Wall, that he read when he visited because the frozen ground had swollen under it. He suffered from mental depression at a young age, and in his poetry he often used irony and human fears.
Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to know that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. Some say the world will end in fire. This is how the world will end, the only option. Some say in ice. Usage of the word some, not I, to assert that this is a universal truth. From what I've tasted of desire, changes in emotional attachment. I hold with those who favor fire. Two groups of people that believe in different things. But if I had to perish twice, both would essentially end the same way. I think I know enough of hate. Too much fire and passion can consume a relationship. To know that for destruction, ice. Cold, indifference, and hate can be equally destructive is also great and would suffice. Strikingly similar and would do the same job. World in this poem is a metaphor for relationships between people. Each different element, fire and ice, can destroy a relationship. He uses the idea of destroying Earth because it was a disputed topic by scientists at this time as well.
A passing glimpse. I often see flowers from a passing car that are gone before I can tell what they are. I want to get out of the train and go back to see what they were beside the track. I name all the flowers I am sure they weren't, not fireweed loving where woods have burnt, not bluebells gracing a tunnel mound, not lupine living on sand and drought. Was something brushed across my mind that no one on earth will ever find? Heaven gives its glimpses only to those not in position to look too close.
This town cannot be.
I often see flowers from a passing car, something beautiful that goes by too fast, like life, that are gone before I can tell what they are, cannot learn who they are or what they can be. I want to get out of the train and go back, did not have enough time to appreciate them, to see what they were beside the track, needs more time to understand what they are. I name all the flowers I am sure they weren't, calls them something he thinks he knows but doesn't know them all that well for sure. Not fireweed loving where woods have burned, doesn't know why they have died, so he must not have known them at all. Not bluebells gracing a tunnel mouth, not what you expect because they are dead, not lupine living on sand and drought. Was something brushed across my mind, no one alive will ever know who they are because they are dead, that no one on earth will ever find. Heaven gives its glimpses only to those. Heaven only allows the living to know so much about the dead because they are not in the same realm, not in position to look too close. You can only become so close to the dead.
Frost is alluding to his 4 out of 6 children that died, some of which he never really got to know before they passed.
Choose something like a star. O star, the fairest one in sight, we grant your loftiness the right. To some obscurity of cloud, it will not do to say of night, since dark is what brings out your light. Some mystery becomes the proud, but to be wholly taciturn in your reserve is not allowed. Say something to us we can learn, by heart and when alone repeat. Say something, and it says, I burn. But say with what degree of heat.
Talk Fahrenheit, talk centigrade. Use language we can comprehend. Tell us what elements you blend. It gives us strangely little aid, but does tell something in the end. And steadfast as Keats' ermite, not even stooping from its sphere, it asks a little of us here. It asks of us a certain height, so when at times the mob is swayed, to carry praise or blame too far, we may choose something like a star, to stay our minds on and be stayed. Choose something like a star. O star, the fairest one in sight, O refers to a prayer to God. We grant your loftiness the right to some obscurity of cloud, something that appears strange but is obviously there. It will not do to say of night, since dark is what brings out your light, shows us that you are there. To some mystery becomes the proud, but to be wholly taciturn in your reserve is not allowed. Say something to us we can learn by heart and when alone repeat. Say something, and it says, I burn. Irony needs him to say something, but doesn't care what it is. Response has no comprehension of anything outside his own existence. But say with what degree of heat. Talk Fahrenheit, talk centigrade. Use language we can comprehend. Tell us what elements you blend. Scientific genre describes the need for specific scientific information about the star. It gives us strangely little aid, but does tell something in the end, and steadfast as Keats' ermite, not even stooping from its sphere, it asks a little of us here, does not ask for much. It asks us of a certain height, only for belief that it is there. So when at times the mob is swayed, when we are confused about what to believe, to carry praise or blame too far, we may choose something like a star, to stay our minds on and be stayed. Reiterates explanation of poem. The word stay shows an individual has a capacity to become stay. The word stayed shows that even such devotion threatens to make humanity stayed. This poem evaluates that humanity needs reassurance from a higher power to believe that it is actually real.
End rhyme. When the last two words of two different lines of poetry rhyme. In the poem, Choose Something Like a Star, the first two lines follow this pattern as it states, O star, the fairest one in sight, we grant your loftiness the right. Iambic pentameter, poetry that is written in lines of 10 syllables, alternating stressed and unstressed syllables. Frost uses this device in his poem Stars, when it states, and yet with neither love nor hate, those stars like some snow white. In this line, both the N and neither and nor have stressed syllables, and each line contains 10 syllables.
Anaphora, repetition of a word, phrase, or clause at the beginning of two or more sentences or clauses in a row. Frost uses this device in his poem A Passing Glance in the lines, not bluebells gracing a tunnel mouth, not lupine on sand and drought. Frost 7-8. He continues to use the word not and repetition of I at the beginning of each line throughout this poem.
Slant rhyme. When a poet creates a rhyme but the two words do not rhyme exactly, they are merely similar. In Fire and Ice, Robert Frost has interwoven rhymes with ire, ice, and ate, like in the lines, but if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate. Irony, when the opposite of what you expect to happen does. Irony is evident in Frost's poem Choose Something Like a Star, in the line, say something, and it says, I burn. This line shows his usage of irony because he is asking the star to say something to him to prove that they are real, and the response he receives is something that he did not expect because he initially did not care. So what do you guys think of Robert Frost's poetry?
Well, I personally like Robert Frost's poetry.
I really like his poetry too.
What about you, Cammie?
I like it. I think his theory about how we should have complete communication is interesting, how he integrates that into his poetry.
It's really inspiring.
It's very deep.
Now let's talk about what that theory is. It's why we have poetry. So his poetry
Theory.
The theory is that humans are completely isolated in our heads,
But there are times when you can look at a person and have complete communication without even really saying anything.
And he hopes to create that effect through his poetry by creating the total sense of communication.
And I think in a way, like, he really achieves that because, I don't know, a lot of his poetry is really relatable. Like, I'll be reading it and I'll be like, yes.
Even though you haven't gone through the experience of losing 4 children,
Yeah.
you understand what he's feeling.
Yeah. It makes sense to me.
Even though it's like, I don't get the whole, like, it's not with his words, like, he has words
Yeah.
in a poem. So it's like what you get from the poem, and at the very end you're like, I'm thinking the same thing as you.
Yeah.
Like,
It creates a connection, and I think it's nice.
Yeah, because I get the emotion when I read it. I think he's pretty successful.
Do you guys have anything else to add about?
I already looked at the
What
camera
about-
weird.
The topics that he talks about?
Oh, he talks a lot about human fears and whatnot, and uses irony a lot, and I think that's kind of interesting because I don't understand why it's like tricking the reader into believing something and then being like, well, this is actually the real outcome of it, without, like, ironic. Like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Like, that's really weird that that's the way he put it.
I know.
With, like, almost every single one of the poems I've read so far, it's like that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Sometimes I can't believe it.
Loose lips might sink ships.
There are times when, like,
Double Dutch disco, tech TV, hottie, do it for Scotty, do it for
um,
do it for the monsters under your bed, do it for the teenagers and do it for your mom. Broken hearts hurt, they make us strong.
Okay.
what that, because, I don't know.
It's a lot of irony.
Are we good?
We good.